But I will give Donald Trump credit for this. He did say something over the weekend that I do agree with him on. You have to give credit where credit is due. Now, I've said this on the show before, and I'll say it again. I hope Donald Trump burns in hell one day, because I think he's a horrible human being. I don't think there's any chance that Donald Trump sees heaven. Now, this is where myself and Donald Trump actually are in agreement. It happens once in a while. It happened with Marjorie Taylor Greene last week. It happened with Nick Fuentes last week. Once in a while, a squirrel can grab a nut and find a nut now and then. So Donald Trump is being asked by Peter Ducey, as I like to call him, from Fox News, who asks the dumbest questions in the world, by the way. He's asked if he thinks Donald Trump will be going to heaven anytime soon. Have a listen to this exchange. And I have to say, ladies and gentlemen, it's one of the few times I actually do agree with Donald Trump. It does happen once in a while. Everything that Donald Trump says here as far as going to heaven or his chances, I agree. Listen to this.
Go ahead. You had talked a couple weeks ago, you were doing an interview, and you talked about how you hope to end the war in Ukraine because it might help you get into heaven. How does this help? Does this help?
I mean, you know, I'm being a little cute. I don't think there's anything going to get me in heaven, okay? I really don't. I think I'm not maybe heaven bound. I may be in heaven right now as we fly in Air Force One. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make heaven, but
I can't believe I'm going to say this, Mr. President. I agree with you. I'm wondering why anybody would disagree with you. Think about it. A liable abuser, dozens of women that have accused him of abuse, including his ex-wife in court documents, a guy who was sued thousands of times, discrimination lawsuits he had to pay up because he didn't want black people living in his buildings in New York City. A guy who's attacked Gold Star families. He's attacked POWs. He had unprotected sex with a porn star a week after Barron was born. A guy that has nicknames for people that he disagrees with. A guy that God knows how many contracts he hasn't paid off. A terrible father, a terrible husband. Why would anybody disagree with him? I agree with you, Mr. President, for once. I do not believe you're going to heaven. I believe you're going to a place that's going to be very hot. I do believe that. So thank you, Mr. President, for once in your life telling the truth. I do appreciate that. A moment of clarity, ladies and gentlemen. So we know that Donald Trump sexualizes women constantly. He's done it his entire life, way before he got into politics, right? Bragging about grabbing women by the genitals, cheating on every single woman he's ever had. And we also know that for the most part, Donald Trump puts women in certain positions of power because he likes looking at them. Well, here's another example of that. It wasn't Caroline Leavitt, the liar Leavitt, who he was praising, for her intelligence. He was talking about her lips. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. Caroline Leavitt's lips are the first thing that came to Donald Trump's mind when he was asked about her. Have a listen to this.
and I've never failed in working it out like immediately. Is that right? How's Caroline doing? Is she doing good? Should Caroline be replaced?
No. That's up to you, sir.
It'll never happen.
Nobody wants to. I say she does a great job. Do you want to elaborate on the
And those lips, they move like a machine gun, right?
Those lips. Yeah, I would never replace Caroline. Why, Mr. President? Oh, because of those lips.
Aren't they always sharing glances when she's sitting on the couch or behind the couch? And didn't they have a video online where they were sharing glances and kind of she did something with her ear? Do you remember that or no?
I think I do. It's just so gross and so disgusting.
It was kind of weird. It was kind of creepy.
Can you imagine if Joe Biden was asked about a female member of his administration and will she be replaced? And the first thing that Joe Biden brought up is the woman's lips.
Oh, those lips. Yeah, forget about it.
They
would have been
a physical attribute,
in a tizzy.
which is pretty amazing. Now here's Donald Trump again, a little forgetful because he's criticizing Barack Obama. He's criticizing Joe Biden for what's transpired here in the Middle East. But we forget that in the middle of that, there was a president by the name of Donald J. Trump. I think he forgot about that. Have a listen to this.
A year ago, the United States of America was a dead country. Now it's the hottest country anywhere in the world. It is the hottest. There's no question about it. In fact, if you go back a year ago, before the election, although once we had November 5th, we became hot because people got it. I would say November 5th was a time that we became really hot. But once you go back a couple of years, if I were in charge and the country was doing what they nobody was going to ask me to speak. Nobody asked Joe Biden to come up and speak, I guarantee you that. And if they did, he would have turned them down, I promise you. He didn't speak. He didn't speak, and he didn't speak well. But all of the countries in the Middle East, it could have, what we're doing now, it could have happened a long time ago, but it was strangled and set back almost irretrievably by the administrations of Barack Obama and then Joe Biden. There was a hatred toward Israel. There was an absolute hatred. The setbacks really started when President Obama signed the Iran nuclear deal. This was a disaster for Israel, and it was a disaster for everyone. And I remember that Bibi Netanyahu came to the United States and worked so hard to try and get Obama not to do that deal. He worked so hard.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Who was the president in between Barack Obama and Joe Biden? Last time I checked, that was Donald J. Trump. What did he do to solve any of these issues? So on one hand, he's complaining about Barack Obama and foreign policy. He's complaining about Joe Biden. He was the president in between the two. What the hell did he do in those 4 years? Nothing. Except release 5,000 Taliban terrorists. He did do that. Let's forget about that, though, right? Here's a perfect example of an American president and what they shouldn't do. Donald Trump in real time now, meddling in the judicial affairs of other nations by claiming that Benjamin Netanyahu deserves a pardon. Have a listen to this.
A good man right here. These two men are good men right here. Hey, I have an idea. Mr. President, why don't you give him a pardon? Give him a pardon. Come on. By the way, that was not in the speech, as you probably know. But I happen to like this gentleman right over here, and it just seems to make so much sense. You know, whether we like it or not, this has been one of the greatest wartime presidents. This has been one of the greatest wartime presidents. And cigars and champagne, who the hell cares about that? All right, enough controversy for the day, right? Actually, I don't think it's very controversial. So, you know, I mean, I see so popular. You are a very popular man. You know why? Because you know how to win.
He's so popular that most Israelis can't stand him, and he has no chance of winning re-election. That's how popular he is. And by the way, who are all these morons that are clapping, by the way? The President of the United States trying to meddle in judicial affairs of other nations. It's despicable and it's disgusting. And if Joe Biden was doing that, or any other president with a D next to their name, MAGA would be having a meltdown. But it's totally okay for Donald Trump to be doing it. It's so despicable and ridiculous. It's unbelievable. And by the way, it was Benjamin Netanyahu, and it was the Israeli government, by the way, that gave us the intelligence under George W. Bush that there were weapons of mass destruction. It was Benjamin Netanyahu that told us, and Donald Trump took every word that was stated by Benjamin Netanyahu, that somehow Iran was furthering their nuclear capabilities when we know that that wasn't the case. but those idiots in that crowd want to clap. If Donald Trump started praising Kim Jong-un or Vladimir Putin, these same morons would be standing up and clapping. Doesn't matter what Donald Trump says. It doesn't matter what he does. He can praise an evil dictator, and they would still get up and give him a standing ovation. That's what we call Trump derangement syndrome, ladies and gentlemen. But I will give Donald Trump credit for this. He did say something over the weekend that I do agree with him on. You have to give credit where credit is due. Now, I've said this on the show before, and I'll say it again. I hope Donald Trump burns in hell one day, because I think he's a horrible human being. I don't think there's any chance that Donald Trump sees heaven.